Isabella Sterling stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of her penthouse, looking down at the glittering sprawl of Chicago. At 31, she was the CEO of Sterling Horizons, a tech conglomerate she had built from a garage startup into a multi-billion-dollar empire. She had been featured on the cover of Forbes, named Innovator of the Decade, and possessed a bank account that could buy small countries. But as she swirled the vintage Pinot Noir in her glass, the silence of the 4,000-square-foot apartment was deafening. Her father, a ruthlessly efficient businessman who had taught her everything about margins but nothing about mercy, had passed away 2 years ago. His final words to her hadn't been, "I love you," but rather, "Don't let anyone steal what you've built." It was a curse she lived by. For the past 6 months, Isabella had been on a mission. She approached dating with the same algorithmic precision she used for her software. She had gone on 9 blind dates arranged by an exclusive, high-end matchmaker. The results were statistically horrifying. Date 1 was a hedge fund manager who spent 40 minutes talking about his yacht's fuel efficiency. Date 4 was a minor royal who forgot his wallet. Date 9, just last night, was the breaking point. A handsome venture capitalist who, before the appetizers arrived, had casually asked if Sterling Horizons was planning a merger so he could move some assets around. He didn't see Isabella. He saw a ticker symbol. "I'm done, Veronica," Isabella said, turning away from the window. Her personal assistant, Veronica, looked up from her tablet. Veronica was sharp, loyal, and the only person who dared to roll her eyes at Isabella. "Done with men? Or done with a matchmaker?" "Done with the money," Isabella said. She walked to her walk-in closet, pushing past rows of Chanel and Gucci. "Every man I meet calculates my net worth before they ask my last name. They want the CEO, not the woman. So what's the plan?" Veronica asked, sensing a scheme. "I'm going undercover," Isabella declared. "Project Invisible. I want to be a nobody, a temp, a struggling admin assistant. I want to see who stays when I have nothing to offer but myself." Veronica sighed. "This isn't a romantic comedy, Bella. Poverty isn't a costume." "I know," Isabella said, her eyes determined. "But it's the only test left." The transformation took 3 days. Isabella rented a cramped, drafty studio apartment in a working-class neighborhood on the South Side. She traded her Mercedes for a bus pass. She went to a thrift store and bought ill-fitting jeans, scuffed sneakers, and sweaters that had seen better days. She removed her diamond earrings and wore a cheap plastic watch. She created a profile on a standard free dating app under the name Bella. Occupation: office temp, income, minimum wage. Bio: just looking for someone real. Her first match was Lucas. They agreed to meet at a diner called Sal's Spoon, a place with sticky tables and coffee that tasted like burnt rubber. Isabella arrived 15 minutes early, her heart pounding in a way it never did before board meetings. She sat in a booth, pulling the sleeves of her oversized sweater over her hands. For the first time in years, she felt vulnerable. Without her power suits and her title, who was she? 10 minutes past the agreed time, the door chimed. A man rushed in. He was tall, with broad shoulders that filled out a faded gray t-shirt. His dark hair was messy, windblown. But it was his hands that caught Isabella's attention. They were rough, calloused, and despite his obvious attempt to scrub them, there were faint traces of motor oil under his fingernails. He spotted her and hurried over, looking mortified. "I'm so sorry," he said, breathless. His voice was deep, raspy. "The bus line was down, and I had to run 6 blocks. I'm Lucas." He didn't look at her chest. He didn't scan her wrist for a Rolex. He looked straight into her eyes with a frantic, genuine sincerity. "It's okay," Isabella said, surprised by her own calmness. "I just got here." Lucas slid into the booth, exhaling sharply. "I promise I'm not usually this disorganized. It's just my daughter's tutor ran late, and I couldn't leave until she was settled, and then the shift at the garage ran long." Isabella paused. "You have a daughter." Lucas froze. He looked down at the menu, his shoulders slumping slightly. "Yeah, Mia? She's 7. Oh, I know I should have put that in the first line of my profile. A lot of women run the other way when they hear single dad. If you want to leave, I get it." "Really?" Isabella watched him. She saw the exhaustion etched around his eyes, the fraying collar of his shirt. But she also saw the way he braced himself for rejection, not with anger, but with resignation. Does she like dinosaurs? Isabella asked. Lucas looked up, blinked. What? Your daughter. Does she like dinosaurs? Or is she a princess kind of girl? A slow, disbelief-filled smile spread across Lucas's face. It transformed him, making him look 5 years younger. She's obsessed with space. Astronomy. She wants to be the first astronaut to play soccer on Mars. Isabella smiled back. She sounds ambitious. I like that. The waiter, a man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, slammed 2 glasses of water down. Order. Just coffee for me, Isabella said. Coffee, Lucas agreed, then hesitated. He looked at the menu prices. And maybe a side of fries to share. If you're hungry. Isabella realized he was calculating the cost. The fries were $4.50. For the men she usually dated, $4.50 was a rounding error. For Lucas, it was a decision. I'd love fries, she said softly. They talked for 2 hours. Lucas told her he worked 2 jobs, a day shift as a lead mechanic at a repair shop, and night shifts delivering packages for a logistics company. He spoke about Mia with a reverence that made Isabella's chest ache. He didn't brag. He didn't complain. He just stated his reality, hard work, little sleep, and a whole lot of love. So Bella, Lucas asked, dipping a fry in ketchup. What's your story? Why is a girl like you sitting in a dive like this with a guy who smells like 10W40 oil? A girl like me? Isabella raised an eyebrow. Yeah, you have intelligent eyes. Sad eyes, but smart. Isabella felt a flush rise to her cheeks. I'm just an admin assistant. I file papers. I make coffee. It's boring. Hey, Lucas said, leaning forward. Honest work is never boring if it puts food on the table. Don't sell yourself short. It was the first time in her life someone had defended her dignity without knowing her net worth. The experiment was supposed to last 3 dates. It had now been a month. Isabella was living a double life that was exhausting her more than any merger ever had. By day, she ran Sterling Horizons from her penthouse, barking orders and moving millions. By 5 p.m., she was stripping off her Versace, putting on her Bella costume, and taking the bus to meet Lucas. She saw the city through his eyes now. She saw how the bus schedules were unreliable, making it hard for hourly workers to be on time. She saw how grocery prices had spiked, forcing Lucas to put back the good brand of cereal and buy the generic bag that tasted like cardboard. Every time she was with him, the guilt gnawed at her. But the feeling of being with him, and his daughter, Mia, was addictive. The third date had been a picnic in the park because Lucas couldn't afford a restaurant that week. That was when she met Mia. Mia was a small, sharp-eyed girl with messy pigtails and a telescope that was held together with duct tape. She had scrutinized Isabella with the suspicion of a child who had seen women come and go. Do you know how far away the moon is? Mia had challenged her immediately. Isabella, recalling a trivia night, smiled. 384,400 kilometers. Give or take. Mia's mouth dropped open. Then she handed Isabella a plastic juice box. You can sit next to me. Lucas had watched the interaction with a look of pure wonder. Now, a month later, they were a strange, mismatched unit. Isabella spent her weekends at Lucas's tiny, clutter-filled apartment. The paint was peeling, the radiator clanked, and the couch sagged in the middle. But it was warm. One rainy Tuesday, Lucas invited her over for dinner. It's a special occasion, he had texted. When she arrived, shaking out her umbrella, the apartment smelled of burnt garlic and cheap wine. Lucas was wearing a clean shirt, but his eyes were heavy with fatigue. What's the occasion? Isabella asked, kissing his cheek. His stubble grazed her skin, sending a shiver down her spine. I paid off the car. Lucas grinned, looking proud. Finally, the title is mine. No more payments. He poured her a glass of wine that Isabella knew cost $6 a bottle. She took a sip and told him it was delicious. That's great, Lucas, she said. It means I can start saving for Mia's space camp, he said, stirring a pot of spaghetti. She got a scholarship for half of it, but I need to come up with the other $500 by next month. I picked up 3 extra shifts. Isabella's hand twitched toward her purse. She had a Black American Express card in there. She could pay for the space camp, buy him a new car, and pay off his rent for the next decade with a single swipe. I can lend you. She started. Lucas turned around, his face hardening slightly. No, Bella. I know you're barely making rent on your studio. I don't take money from people who need it. I've got this. I'm the dad. It's my job. I just want to help, she whispered. You help by being here, Lucas said, walking over to her. He took her hands, her soft, manicured hands, in his rough ones. You help by listening to Mia talk about black holes for an hour. That's worth more than money. He kissed her then. It wasn't the polite peck of a first date. It was a kiss that tasted of cheap wine and desperation and a deep, terrifying hope. Isabella melted into him, forgetting the lie, forgetting the billions. Later that night, after they had eaten the slightly overcooked pasta and Mia had gone to sleep, they sat on the small balcony, sharing a blanket. Lucas had had a bit too much wine, a rare indulgence for him. His guard was down. My ex-wife, he mumbled, looking at the streetlights. Sarah? She left when Mia was 2. Why? Isabella asked, resting her head on his shoulder. Said I lack vision. Said she didn't sign up for a life of coupons and camping trips. She wanted the high life. Found a guy in finance. Moved to the suburbs. She sends a card on Christmas. That's it. Isabella stiffened. I hate liars, Lucas continued, his voice slurring slightly, his eyes closing. I can deal with being poor. I can deal with the struggle. But I can't deal with people who pretend to be something they're not. Sarah pretended she loved the simple life until she didn't. He turned to Isabella, his eyes half open, hazy with sleep and affection. That's why I love you, Bella. You're real. You're just you. No games. No masks. He fell asleep against her shoulder a moment later. Isabella sat there in the cold Chicago air, terrified. She wasn't just wearing a mask. She was wearing an entire costume. And when he found out, it wouldn't matter that she wasn't a gold digger. It would only matter that she was a liar. The crack in the facade appeared 2 weeks later. Isabella was at a high-end boutique in the city center during her lunch break, dressed in her CO attire, a sharp navy blazer, tailored trousers, and heels that clicked with authority. She was buying a gift for a client. As she stepped out of the shop, checking emails on her phone, she heard a familiar laugh. She froze. Across the street, Lucas was unloading a delivery truck. He was wearing his brown uniform, sweating in the midday sun, laughing with a coworker. Isabella panicked. She turned to duck back into the store, but it was too late. Lucas had turned. His eyes swept over the street. He saw her. Isabella's heart stopped. She was wearing a $3,000 suit. Her hair was professionally blown out. She looked nothing like Bella the Temp. Lucas squinted. He took a step forward, confusion wrinkling his brow. Bella, he mouthed. Isabella's mind raced. She couldn't run. That would look insane. Just then, a sleek black town car pulled up to the curb, blocking Lucas's view for a split second. Isabella dove into the back seat of her waiting car. Go, she screamed at the driver. Just drive. As the car pulled away, she looked back. Lucas was standing on the curb, looking confused, rubbing his eyes with the back of his hand. He probably thought he was hallucinating from heat exhaustion. Her phone buzzed 10 minutes later. Lucas, crazy thing. Saw a woman downtown who looked exactly like you. But she was dressed like a movie star. Must be missing you too much. Isabella let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. She typed back, Bella, everyone has a doppelganger. Hope your shift is going well. But the close call shook her. She knew she was running on borrowed time. It was a Tuesday night when the fragile bubble burst. Isabella was in a board meeting that had run late. Her phone, usually silenced, started buzzing incessantly. She ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. She glanced at the screen. Lucas. He never called during her work hours. She had told him she worked untraditional shifts to explain her unavailability. She signaled for a pause in the meeting and stepped into the hallway. Lucas? Is everything okay? It's Mia. Lucas's voice was high, tight, bordering on panic. She collapsed at school. I'm at St. Jude's emergency room. They think it's her appendix, but there are complications. Her fever is spiking. I'm coming, Isabella said. I'm on my way. She didn't change. She didn't have time to go to the apartment and put on her thrift store clothes. She ran to the elevator, her heels clicking on the marble. Cancel the rest of the meeting, she shouted at Veronica. And get my car. When Isabella arrived at the public hospital, it was chaos. The waiting room was packed. She found Lucas standing near the nurse's station, looking pale and small. He was arguing with an administrator. I have insurance. Lucas was yelling, his voice cracking. It's through the logistics company. Mr. Bennett, your deductible is $5,000, and because this specialist is out of network. The administrator droned on. I don't care about the network. She's in pain. Lucas slammed his hand on the counter. Isabella slowed down. She saw the desperation in his posture. The man who was too proud to borrow $20 was now begging for his daughter's life. She walked up to him. Lucas. He spun around. Relief washed over his face, followed immediately by confusion. He took in her appearance. The tailored silk blouse. The diamond studs she hadn't removed. The aura of command she carried. Bella, he whispered. You look. Where is she? Isabella asked, ignoring his confusion. They won't take her back to thee or until I sign the financial liability forms. But my card got declined for the deposit. Tears were streaming down his face now. Isabella turned to the administrator. Her voice dropped an octave. It became the voice that made grown men tremble in boardrooms. My name is Isabella Sterling, she said, pulling out her black card. Admit Mia Bennett immediately. Private room. The best pediatric surgeon you have on call. Put everything on this card. The administrator's eyes widened. She recognized the name. Ms. Sterling. Yes, right away. Isabella turned back to Lucas. He wasn't looking at the administrator. He was looking at her. The relief was gone, replaced by a cold, dawning horror. Isabella Sterling, he repeated. The billionaire. Lucas, please, she reached for his arm. Let's just get Mia healthy first. He pulled his arm away as if she had burned him. Who are you? I'm the woman who loves you, she said, her voice shaking. No, Lucas stepped back. You're a tourist. You're a rich tourist who came to the slums to see how the poor people live. Was this fun for you? Watching me count pennies for fries? Watching me stress about rent? It wasn't like that. Mia is in there scared, Lucas said, his voice breaking. I need to be with my daughter. You can pay the bill if it makes you feel like a savior. I'll pay you back every cent if it takes me the rest of my life. But stay away from us. He turned and walked through the double doors the nurse had opened. Isabella stood alone in the hallway, the most powerful woman in the city, feeling utterly powerless. Mia's surgery was a success. Isabella paid the bill anonymously, though Lucas knew exactly where the money came from. For 2 weeks, silence. Isabella stopped going to the office. She lay in her penthouse, wearing the cheap sweatpants she had bought for her bella persona. The expensive silk sheets felt rough against her skin. She had tried to visit the hospital the next day, but the nurses politely informed her that Mr. Bennett had removed her from the visitor list. She sent letters. They were returned unopened. Veronica found her on the couch one morning, surrounded by empty takeout containers. Get up, Veronica said gently. He hates me, Isabella said. And he's right. I lied to him. I made his life a game. You lied about your name, Veronica said. You didn't lie about how you felt. You need to prove that. How? I can't buy him. That's the whole point. He's the one man who can't be bought. Then stop acting like a CEO and start acting like the woman who fixed his sink with duct tape and watched space documentaries for hours. Isabella sat up. He needs to know that I understand. Understand what? That being a single parent isn't a charity case. It's a heroic act that the world ignores. Isabella stood up. The fog cleared. Her father's voice, don't let anyone steal what you've built, echoed in her head, but she pushed it away. She wasn't going to build a wall. She was going to build a bridge. Lucas was back at work at the warehouse. He moved like a robot. Mia was recovering at home, watched by his neighbor, Mrs. Gable. He was miserable. He missed Bella. He missed her laugh, her terrible cooking, the way she looked at him. But every time he thought of her, he saw the deception. She had watched him struggle and said nothing. She had the power to fix everything and chose to watch him drown, just to see if he could swim. It felt cruel. Lucas, his supervisor yelled. You've got a visitor in the loading bay. Lucas wiped his hands on a rag. If it's a bill collector, tell him I'm not here. I don't think it's a bill collector, son. Lucas walked out to the concrete loading dock. Isabella was standing there. She wasn't wearing a power suit. She wasn't wearing her Bella disguise either. She was wearing jeans and a simple white t-shirt. She looked tired. I told you to stay away, Lucas said, hardening his heart. I know, Isabella said. She didn't step closer. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I'm here to give you something. I don't want your money. It's not for you, she said. She handed him a folder. He hesitated, then took it. Inside were legal documents. What is this? I've liquidated the charitable arm of Sterling Horizons, Isabella said clearly. And I've launched a new foundation. The Orion Initiative, named after Mia's favorite constellation. Lucas frowned, reading the papers. It's a fund specifically for single fathers, Isabella explained. It provides emergency medical grants, childcare subsidies, and legal aid. No red tape. No networks. Just help when the car breaks down or the kid gets sick. Lucas looked up. Why? Because you told me once that the hardest part wasn't the work. It was the feeling that you were doing it all alone, Isabella said, her voice trembling. I can't change that I lied to you. I was scared. I was scared that everyone only wanted my money. So I hid it. But in hiding it, I hid myself. And I missed the chance to be your partner. She took a deep breath. This foundation, you're the executive director. If you want the job, it pays a salary that means you don't have to work night shifts. You can be home for dinner with me. You can help other guys like you. I don't know anything about running a foundation, Lucas said quietly. You know everything about the people it serves, Isabella said. I can hire accountants for the math. I need someone with a heart for the mission. She turned to leave. The job is yours, whether you forgive me or not. The money is already deposited. It's real. Unlike the way we started. She began to walk away toward her modest sedan. She had kept the cheap car. Isabella. She stopped. She turned around. Lucas was looking at the papers, then at her. He dropped the folder on a crate. Does the executive director position come with a signing bonus? He asked. Isabella blinked. I suppose we could negotiate one. I don't want a bonus, Lucas said, walking toward her. He closed the distance. I want the truth. Right now. Do you love me? Or was I just the project? I love you, Isabella said, tears spilling over. I love how you sing off-key to me. I love how you smell like engine grease. I love that you're the best man I've ever met, rich or poor. Lucas stopped in front of her. He looked at her face, searching for any sign of a lie. He saw only raw, terrified honesty. You're an idiot, Lucas said softly. You could have just told me you were rich. I would have let you buy dinner. I'm an idiot, she agreed. He pulled her in. The kiss wasn't like the one on the balcony. It wasn't desperate. It was solid. It was a promise. It was the merging of two worlds that had finally found their orbit. 6 months later. The Sterling Horizons annual gala was usually a stuffy affair where rich people patted themselves on the back. This year, it was different. The ballroom was filled with the usual suspects, CEOs, politicians, socialites. But scattered among them were men in rented tuxedos, men with rough hands and nervous smiles. The recipients of the Orion Initiative grants. Isabella stood on the stage, wearing a stunning emerald gown. She looked powerful, yes, but also radiant. Ladies and gentlemen, she spoke into the microphone. For years, I measured success by profit margins. But recently, I learned that the greatest wealth is the ability to care for those you love without fear. She gestured to the side of the stage. Please welcome the executive director of the Orion Initiative and the man who taught me what value really means, Mr. Lucas Bennett. Lucas walked onto the stage. He looked devastatingly handsome in a tuxedo that actually fit him perfectly. Isabella had insisted on a tailor. He was holding Mia's hand. Mia was wearing a dress with sequin stars on it. The crowd applauded. Lucas stepped to the mic. He looked nervous for a second, then he found Isabella's eyes in the front row. She nodded. Thank you, Lucas said. His voice was steady. A year ago, I was worried about paying for a radiator repair. Tonight, thanks to Isabella, we helped 400 families keep their heat on. He looked at the crowd. There's a lot of money in this room, Lucas said, charming, crooked grin appearing. And I intend to ask you for a lot of it tonight. Because being a dad is a full-time job, and it's time we gave it a raise. Laughter and applause rippled through the room. In the back of the room, standing near the bar, was the venture capitalist from Isabella's ninth date, the one who had only cared about mergers. He was watching Lucas with jealousy. Who was that guy? He sneered to a waiter. Some mechanic she picked up. The waiter stopped. It was one of the men Lucas used to work with at the logistics company, picking up a catering shift for extra cash. That guy? The waiter said proudly. That's Lucas Bennett. He's the real deal. And he's got more class in his grease rag than you have in your whole portfolio. On stage, Mia tugged on Lucas's sleeve. Daddy, can I say something? Lucas lowered the mic. My daddy is my hero, Mia squeaked, her voice amplified through the hall. But Bella is my hero, too. Because she saved us. Isabella walked onto the stage. She didn't care about the cameras. She knelt down and hugged Mia, then stood up and took Lucas's hand. No, Isabella whispered to them, loud enough for the mic to catch it. You saved me. Lucas squeezed her hand. The photographers flashed their cameras, capturing the moment. The billionaire CEO and the single dad, standing together, an unstoppable team. As the music started and the dancing began, Lucas pulled Isabella close. You know, he whispered in her ear, I still haven't paid you back for that hospital bill. Isabella laughed, resting her head on his chest. I think you can work it off. I'm going to need a lot of lifetime commitment. Deal, Lucas said. But I'm driving home. Your car is too fancy. Deal. And as they spun around the dance floor, Isabella Sterling knew she was finally truly rich.